Good morning all. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Standards Committee meeting of the 29th of January 2026. May I remind everyone present that the meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded via the internet, and this recording will be archived for future viewing on the Council's website and YouTube channel. If a participant wishes to speak, can they please raise their hand in order for the Chair and myself to see that request? The raise hand function button is in the bottom centre of your screen. When invited to address by the Chair, Mr. Richard Hendicott, please could all participants ensure that their microphone and camera is on to ensure that they can be seen and heard when actively participating. For clarity, you just need to press the large activation button in the bottom centre of your screen to make sure that you can be heard and seen. Please ensure that all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat function for the sake of the recording. And that concludes the housekeeping, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy, and welcome everybody to this meeting. The first item on the agenda are apologies for absence. Are there any?
Just one to myself, Chair, from Mr. Gregory Alford, independent member.
All right. Thank you for that. Item 2, minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of November 2025. Hopefully you've had those and read them through. I read them when they were in draft form, and I've read them again, and they seem in order. The only issue I would raise is the question of pronouns, and that's probably me being very old-fashioned. I don't like the choice of the pronouns that are used. I would go back to the original his and her, but I suppose that this is the way it's done these days. Vicky, do you want to comment?
Thank you, Chair. If I may, just to confirm that the use of the gender-neutral pronouns is the corporate minute style for the Council. Obviously, we can note your comment and I can have a discussion with Vicky after the meeting, as well as the Head of Democratic Services, who has the responsibility for producing those documents, and we can have a look at that.
Okay, well, don't worry. I think I've made my point. Does anybody want to raise any issues about the minutes of the meeting? No? So we'll take those as being a true record of what happened on the 20th of November. Item 3 is to receive declarations of interest and the nature of such interest under the Council's Code of Conduct. Are there any? If you could raise your hands, please. No, so there aren't any. Moving on to item 4, applications for dispensation. We have 2 here, and Vicky, as monitoring officer, could you introduce these, please?
Thank you, Chair. So before the committee this morning, we have applications for dispensation in relation to Councillor William Hennessy, who's seeking a dispensation to speak, vote and remaining meetings of the Vale of Glamorgan and Barry Town Council meetings in respect of matters relating to the Age 50 Plus Forum. And when any items of that nature are discussed. The request, as I've indicated, is to speak and vote. The member in question was appointed to the Vale 50 Plus Forum independently from the Principal Council. And puts forward that if he'd been appointed as the Vale of Glamorgan Council's representative, he would have the right to speak and vote at council committee meetings of which he's a member. The member in question is also a member of the scrutiny committee, where such matters are discussed on occasions. The matters that the forum considered are are not relevant really for the purposes of this application, and the member puts forward in his request that where matters relating to the 50+ forum are discussed on occasions, and whilst he's aware that he can speak on those items before a scrutiny committee meeting, because the public have a right, obviously, to speak at a scrutiny committee, he seeks dispensation from the Standards Committee this morning, so that he can speak and vote on such matters for the committee of which he's a member. The matters subject to the forum discussion before the forum are also discussed at other meetings of the council, including and in particular meetings of full council. So the relevant paragraphs under the legislation and regulations which Councillor Hennessy proposes he is granted a dispensation to speak and vote on are categories D and F. So that relates to the nature of the member's interest, is such that their participation in the business to which the interest relates would not damage the public confidence when that business is being conducted by the council, and F, where the participation of the member in the business to which the interest relates is justified by the member's particular role or expertise, both in relation to his status as an elected member of the Principal Council and obviously a member of the forum. So
thank you, Vicky. That seems all right to me, but does anybody want to comment or say anything? No. So, does everybody agree that that should be allowed on DNF? Silence will mean that you agree. If anybody objects, perhaps they can raise their hand. That looks fine, so that goes through. We move on to the next application, which is Bronwen Brooks, and it's similar.
Sorry, I do apologise. I touched the wrong button. Right. Sorry, this application relates to Councillor Brooks, who's a deputy leader of the Principal Council. She's twin-hatted, represents the Court Ward, and is also a member, as I say, of the Barry Town Council. Barry Town Council, a bit of context for this one, are currently involved in agreeing their placemaking plans, similar to the other 3 town councils, and obviously matters relating to the town council's arrangements for the development of the placemaking plans raises matters within meetings of the Barry Town Council, which relate to Councillor Brooks's position, not necessarily as a deputy leader of this council, but her portfolio responsibilities. Councillor Brooks is seeking dispensation to speak, vote and remaining meetings of the Principal Council and the Barry Town Council when matters relating to the Vale of Glamorgan placemaking plans are being discussed before the Town Council and the Principal Council. The dispensation is sought to remain in place till the next local government elections in May 27. And I would say, just on the earlier one, Amy, for the purposes of the minutes, that would relate also to Councillor Hennessy's. The categories, same as the previous application, D and F, so I won't go through those again. I don't think there's anything else I can add to that. So matter for the chair and the committee to consider that request.
Thank you, Vicky. That seems, again, satisfactory. Does anybody want to comment? No. Does anybody object to it? If anybody objects, could they put their hand up, please? No. So that will be allowed, that dispensation. Thank you very much. moving on, we move on now to observation by independent members of the Vale of Glamorgan Council and the Town and Community Council committee meetings. I think there have been quite a few meetings since the last report. Where do I find those? Is that 448? Page 448? No, that's no. Yes, if you could introduce them, you've got your. You can.
Right. So we've got details set out within the reports. And the relevant sections for members of the committee is section 2, so paragraphs 2.1, and in particular 2.3, which captures the observation meetings which have been undertaken since the last meeting of this committee, Standards Committee, on the 20th of November. So there's been 4 in total. Greg Alford, who isn't present today, attended and observed. I think he might have been online. I can't remember.
Yes, I
read it.
It's okay. I found
You've got it. Yeah, fine. Okay.
I'll just ask Gerwyn Watkins if he could tell us about his visits to Sully and Lavernock on the 8th of December and the Vale of Glamorgan Planning Committee on the 15th of January. Gerwyn, are you able to do that, please?
Yes. Sully and Lavernock Community Council on the 8th of December. This was billed as a meeting of the Finance Committee, but as I understand it, all council members are on the committee and it has full powers of the council. It was a virtual meeting. I'm not a fan of such meetings, but with Amy's coaching, I was able to join promptly. Not a fan of such meetings, as I say, but this was one which actually seemed to work. And it illustrated the benefits of such meetings because one member, I believe, was in London. Another member at the meeting was abroad. The meeting started on time. The chairman hadn't then joined, probably having the same sort of technical difficulties that I usually have. So the deputy started the meeting promptly. The chairman established connectivity within a few minutes and then took charge. I felt this was a purposeful meeting. It was well chaired and conducted. All members participated fully. I left the meeting when it moved into part 2. Very full agenda. I had wondered whether they would get through it, but the agenda set out in details items to be decided and didn't lump items together for consideration. This meant that attention was focused on that issue, and in my view, it made for a more structured and decision-making and discussion. The other thing I noted with this council was that resolutions were formally proposed and seconded, which is not always the case. I concluded it was a very well-run and well-organized meeting.
Thank you. Can you move on to the Vale of Glamorgan Planning Committee on the 15th of January? Gerwyn, please.
Yes. This was a hybrid meeting of the Vale's Planning Committee. 15th of January, it was held in the council's chamber. I sat in the public gallery. There were no identification cards in front of those present, but they could be identified on screen if they spoke. The meeting started promptly. There were a number of applications. Officers used photographs and plans, which were projected onto a large screen. which made it easier to follow the discussion. Members of the public had the opportunity to register to speak. They were identified on screen. They were allowed 3 minutes. That went well, although I felt maybe 3 minutes wasn't adequate, given the time allowed for councillors, just 5 minutes, and seemingly no restriction on officers. One item in particular had generated a lot of interest, and most of the time of the meeting was taken up with this one application. Public gallery was full, and there was extra accommodation provided in the well of the chamber. One councillor spoke in Welsh. Translation equipment was provided for the public. I didn't use it, so I can't judge the quality of the translation, but it seemed to go well. At the end, there was a recorded vote. The result appeared on the screen, but very briefly. I couldn't absorb how all the members had voted, and this would have given me an opportunity to ascertain who was present and hadn't spoken. I referred later to the YouTube recording for the full voting details. Meeting lasted 1 hour, 40 minutes. I have no adverse comments to make.
Thank you very much. Does anybody want to ask questions or comment on those two meetings referred to by Gerwyn Watkins, please? Janet Evans?
Hi. Yeah, I observed the full Vale of Glamorgan Council meeting back in December in a training capacity, not in an official observation capacity. But one thing I noticed was the same as Gerwyn, that the recorded votes flashed up very, very briefly on screen, and I wasn't able to decipher the detail on them. So I agree with his observation there.
Thank you. Amy, do you want to comment?
If I may, Chair, just to acknowledge the comments of Janet and Gerwyn in relation to the voting results. Standard procedure is obviously to have the results for it automatically displays on screen within a certain time frame. Those recorded votes then obviously are live streamed, so those votes are readily available on demand for anybody to look back on in their own leisure for the amount of time they may need. But I do accept the point that obviously at the time of a live meeting, procedures are ongoing, and in the interest of moving business along, we use the standardised timing for the voting display. But I can certainly take that back to the Democratic team and to speak with the relevant chairs in terms of allowing maybe slightly longer than is the standardised timing. But just to make members aware that the results are readily available and accessible straight away for the public on demand.
Thank you. Councillor Charles?
Yes, thank you. I totally agree with the comments that have been made. But going back particularly to the planning committee meeting, I do feel very strongly that 3 minutes and 5 minutes is not enough for people to actually get all their points across. And the public find that extremely frustrating, and they really feel as though the council is not a fair council. I'm just passing on comments that I've heard and the way I feel about the planning committee. So I'm glad Gerwyn brought that point up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Summers?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was going to really pick up on Gerwyn's point and Councillor Charles's comments there. Have we... Perhaps Amy could tell us what is the mechanism for us getting that information back to the planning committee or whoever needs to have it in regard to the length of time that both the public and councillors are allowed to speak? Because obviously that does seem to be something worth making them aware of. really.
Amy, do you want to deal with that point?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the public speaking time that is allocated to both members of the public and elected members at Planning Committee are the times set within our public speaking policy, which is part of the Council's constitution and therefore agreed by elected members and put in place. So the meeting was operated in line with the policy correctly. In terms of Councillor Summers' point, in terms of feeding back, members of the public are provided, who do speak, are provided with a survey. The results of those survey are shared with planning officers and democratic officers. And as part of that process, I can also raise the comments from the committee today to take that back to the relevant officers. But at the moment, if we were going to move away from the allowed speaking time that is currently permitted, that would need to be a constitutional change for the council.
Thank you for explaining that. Councillor Franks?
Hi. I would say that the current time limits do encourage great discipline for speakers. So whatever they have to say, they absolutely focus on their point. And it does sometimes help the rest of the committee to concentrate on the most significant issue, because the more you less is more is often the motto that goes through my little mind. However, really, my other concern is the lack of meaningful input in the planning process. Because let's be fair, the 98% of the work has been done by the time it gets to the planning committee. Whereas, yes, there are consultations, but how informed members of the public are in terms of what's going on behind the scenes is another question. So I just thought I'd add that contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, that's raised a few issues that perhaps can be considered with the planning committee. I'll move on and ask Ronnie Alexander if he could tell us about his visit to Llancarvan Community Council on the 18th of December.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very pleased to be able to offer some observations on this visit. This was a meeting that was held in the village hall at that location. It was an in-person meeting. Remote was also available by means of a laptop that was provided, but no one was present in that format. The meeting started at 7:30 and concluded promptly at 9 o'clock. I was welcomed by the clerk, and members were obviously aware that I was observing the meeting because I was in the room. It was clear who the members and the officers were. All of the members and the officers, the clerk, had name cards. The room was well lit. I could obviously hear what was being said in the room, and the room was of an appropriate size. I was provided with an electronic copy of the agenda in advance of the meeting. The meeting commenced promptly on time. No members of the public were present. Motions were moved and seconded in an appropriate manner. The meeting did follow the agenda, and rulings of the chair were adhered to. The meeting was very well run. There was no part 2 on the agenda. Members did show respect and consideration for each other, very much so. And a member did declare a personal interest and removed themselves from the room completely whilst that subject was being discussed. So this was a meeting that was actually chaired by the vice chair in the absence of the substantive chair, who had extended apologies. It was a group, in my submission, of well-intentioned community councillors who were very energetic in their wish to do their best for the local community. The agenda was of some 19 items, which is a substantial amount of business to get through within the timescale. But there was adequate time for discussion of all substantive items. In my submission, this was a very well-run meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Franks, you've got your hand up. Do you want to comment, or it's now gone down? Are there any comments? Amy, you've got a point to make?
Thank you, Chair. It's not a point in relation to Mr. Alexander's. I was just going to offer the opportunity, if I may, to summarise the comments that Mr. Alford is happy for me to provide in relation to his observation in his absence this morning. If you would like me to do so, I can.
Yes, that's fine. I hadn't appreciated that. Thank
Yes. Would you like me to do that now, Chair, or would...
Yes, please.
Yes? Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Gregory Alford has kindly provided a report following his observation of the Vale of Glamorgan full council meeting on the 1st of December 2025. It was a hybrid meeting and Mr. Alford attended remotely. In relation to the notes that he's provided, Mr. Alford has not raised any concerns in relation to the meeting room or meeting itself arrangements, or the way that the meeting was conducted via officers and members. However, he has raised a comment that there were some delays during the proceedings due to the user error of members attending and also members engaging with the remote controls of the meeting, causing a bit of confusion and with regards to how the member was wishing to participate. Overall, he concluded that there was obvious tensions amongst the attendees, which was drawn along political lines. However, he acknowledged that that was expected given the nature of the meeting, and notwithstanding the tension, the attendees did show and respect and consideration for others. So that concludes his comments. He's kindly passed to me in his absence, Chair.
Thank you very much. And for completeness, I was due to attend a governance meeting of the Vale in the early part of December. I had connectivity problems. I could not get on properly online. And so I cancelled it. And I'm going in February and I'm going to attend in person. So, are there any comments on those on that item in the agenda, or if you want to add anything?
Chair, if I can just come in just to sort of update the committee, really, to say that I think particularly the elected members will be keen to hear this, that I feed back to the clerks of each of the town and community councils where observations have been undertaken and discuss any issues that have arisen and offer to provide support or guidance in relation to any matters and any points that the clerks raise with me in regards to the observations, particularly where the independent members have raised points, which we've heard some this morning. I can then feed back to those independent members just for a bit of context, really, once I've spoken to the clerks.
Thank you very much. That's helpful. Right, we'll move on to item 6, which is Standards Committee Quoracy Governance Review. Vicky?
Thank you, Chair. So committee members will recall when we met on the 20th of November last year, which seems like a long time ago now, there was a report on the agenda relating to issues regarding quoracy during 2024 and 2025. The focus of the last report, I'm not going to dwell too much on it, but the focus of the report before the committee in November last year related to 3 meetings of the committee, and distilling that down, it impacted on decisions made in relation to dispensations granted in respect of 2 members, which the committee resolved in November. There was a third meeting which related to a meeting in July 2024 before, and in relation to that matter, the committee in November couldn't progress any further because there were communications and liaison ongoing at the time with the member and the other parties to that agenda item. As things stand, the discussions that were taking place as at November last year haven't progressed any further. That's largely been in fairness to the member in question, who this impacts, and the ability to bottom out with that party and their legal representatives how they wish to proceed. It isn't ideal because we were hoping to deal with this matter this morning. What I've committed to do is to speak again to the member who I spoke to on the 12th of January this year. They wanted to speak to somebody before coming back to me. So I'm going to invite that member in and have a conversation with them. And the proposal then is not to delay this any further, bring the matter back in March with a view to inviting the committee to make a decision in relation to the issue. So I think that's all I can say at this stage. But yes, we will conclude this matter in March.
Thank you very much on that. I think this has been going on long enough, and I think we must conclude this matter in March, one way or the other. Any comments from anybody on this item? No. Vicky, I think your next report is on the All Wales Monitoring Officer Group Update report.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So there's a report before the committee which sets out in section 2 under the key issues for consideration the items that were discussed. It was a sort of standard meeting in terms of duration. There wasn't a great deal discussed in relation to items that were necessarily relevant to this committee. There was quite a lot of discussion just for interest on the Public Accountability Bill and the proposals for the abolition of the Police and Crime Commissioner. So that took up a large chunk of the meeting, and we had representatives just out of interest from Welsh Government attending and the WLGA. In relation to items that relate to this committee, paragraph 2.4, the Ombudsman's representative updated, and essentially they were expressing experiences of another challenging year. Currently, they have over 100 investigations, 55 of which have remained open and subject to investigation. The cases that they describe as backlog cases or aged cases are reducing. There was a discussion around the outcomes of referrals to local authority standards committees, not this one, but other local authority standards committees in Wales. And I won't refer to those now because there's a report coming, I think, to the March meeting, which will cover the recent updates from the Public Service Ombudsman for Wales. So I'll capture that information then. And there was a discussion then about the adjudication panel for Wales' recent decisions. And again, there's a report on the agenda this morning, which I'll go through. One of the points raised by the Ombudsman's representative related to localised town and community council complaints. They're seeing quite a high level of tit-for-tat complaints, member on member. And essentially, the Ombudsman's representative was encouraging monitoring officers to note this and to encourage within their local authority areas in relation to the town and community councils that they support to deal with those complaints at a low level. most, if not all, of the TCCs in our local authority area have local dispute resolution procedures. And when I engage with clerks of town and community councils where there are issues, to provide support as the monitoring officer of the principal council, those form part of the discussions. That they tend to be, quite challenging situations for clerks to deal with, in fairness. I think the messaging that was coming out from the Ombudsman's office is very much members need to remember that making repeated tit-for-tat complaints, member on member, can be considered to be vexatious, which itself is a technically, or arguably rather, a breach of the Members' Code of Conduct not to make vexatious complaints. So that was something that I was keen to raise with the committee this morning, just for awareness. I don't think there was very much else to say. The Ombudsman's changed their system in terms of how they submit how citizens and members of the public and elected members submit complaints. But yeah, I think that was about it.
Thank you very much. I attended a meeting on Monday of this week of the National Standards Committee Chairs Forum, and a lot of what you have said was actually repeated there. There's nothing major that I need to report on. I haven't prepared a report. That we haven't had a document through from that. Yes, the Ombudsman there was making the point about these tit-for-tat allegations. Councillor Franks, you've got your hand up.
Thank you. I welcome this this emphasis on avoiding such complaints, though I do think the culture has been in the past encouraged by the Ombudsman for people to make vexatious complaints. So they are. What's that good old phrase? Hoist by their own petard, except I don't know what a petard is. I do welcome it, but really the Ombudsman needs to do a little bit more than send out an email or make a comment. There has to be more education, more information going to the public to say, hey, you don't waste everyone's time by these petty complaints. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Are there any other comments? Yes, Councillor Summers.
Could I just ask the monitoring officer, has there been any noticeable increase in such complaints from TCCs within our area over the last year or so?
There has been a series of complaints which were member on member sort of type complaints, which were referred to the Ombudsman, but none of those complaints were proceeded to an investigation. So they didn't meet the two-stage test. From recollection, in relation, I'm going to be updating the committee in part 2 on the recent historical complaints and the current position, so I can cover that off then. But yeah, there has been a trend of sorts, but not currently. And in fairness, and I'd like to say this, that the town and community councils in the Vale of Glamorgan principal area are, very good at managing these issues. You do get situations, in fairness to some clerks who are quite new, who lack experience, where they struggle to deal with some of those issues, but usually they get in touch with me, and I'm able to support and resolve those issues. I just wanted to say, for Councillor Franks's benefit, just for awareness, the Welsh Government are currently running or have run a series of workshops there was and Councillor Summers, you'll be aware of this, there was a review undertaken by the Welsh Government back in 2024, I think. I'll be corrected if I'm wrong on the timescales. My deputy monitoring officer, actually, when she was working in Torfaen, was involved in some of that work from Torfaen's perspective. But each of us have attended, and I attended 2 sessions on workshop sessions on the town and community council sector in Wales, how they're supported, not just by principal councils, and the workshop that I attended and presented at with the monitoring officer from Bridgend related to the management by the clerk and the community council of these types of complaints. And that promotion of the local dispute resolution procedures, which most TCCs have got in place. I think the reality is, and this is common knowledge, that clerks do find it challenging. There needs to be a greater emphasis on the use of the LDRP at the local level. And so that is something that the Welsh Government are working on. There's also a proposal, because One Voice Wales have been involved in working alongside the Welsh Government in relation to this programme, that when members are returned, local members are returned to a town and community council, that when they sign the declaration of office, that then as part of that declaration of office, it becomes mandatory for them to undergo training. I know most TCCs do deliver the training, but it sort of focuses the mind really and sort of reinforces the importance of compliance with the code.
No, I think picking up on your points there, Victoria, that last one, and first starting working backwards. I mean, mandatory training for community councillors is something I think many of us are very keen to pursue. It's so important that with quite a high turnover of councillors, that they do all sort of understand the basics, if nothing else. And also just to acknowledge. Picking up on the point about the variation in experience with clerks. I know many clerks really do appreciate, and chairs do appreciate the opportunity to pick up more challenging items with yourselves and get the benefit of your experience on them. So thank you for the support you provide us there.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Are there any other comments on that? No. So we'll move on to item 8, which is the adjudicational panel for Wales recent tribunal decisions. You've had those. I don't see there's any need, Vicky, for you to take us through those. They can be noted. It's important if we have a sort of library of these cases, so that if we have to deal with similar cases, they will be brought to our attention rather. But I'm not sure there's any need for you to review the decisions on the basis that hopefully we've all read them. You're nodding your head. So we'll move on from there to civility in public life.
Thank you, Chair. So this is just a short report to update members of the Standards Committee on the recent work associated with the Civility in Public Life programme, which is an important programme that spans the UK. So you've got the Local Government Association, the WLGA in Wales, NIGLA, which is the Northern Ireland Government Association, and COSLA in Scotland. The leader, I'm pleased to say, is on the call and is going to be joining in a moment to update us on the most recent work, because she's involved in the programme and has spoken at a series of events. She's also the presiding member of the WLGA currently, so there's that link there. But just to mention before we bring the leader in, A couple of key points, paragraph 2.1. The WLGA met with all Wales leaders on the 16th of January and the Police and Crime Commissioners. I won't run through the items discussed, but they're set out in paragraph 2.1. There was also a convention which took place. It was based in Scotland, so COSLA sort of led on that, but all of the government associations were involved in that discussion and that meeting, and a pledge was signed, and it's sort of that reinforcement of the commitment to the work that the programme's undertaken. There's also some detail in the report about the key strands of the activity that's ongoing currently, which members can read from paragraphs 2.5 through to 2.14. I've also included in the report the Local Government Association's annual report and the focus that it has on the civility programme. But I think as we've got the leader here, it would be good to hear firsthand what the recent updates are.
Yes, Councillor Burnett. You're with us. Welcome back to and Standards Committee. You used to sit with us a few years ago.
I did indeed, Chair.
Right.
And it's a shame that it normally clashes with either my cabinet or business cabinet. Otherwise,
Right.
I would be here more regularly.
Well, thank you for sparing the time, and perhaps you could address us.
Yes, I think this is an area which is growing. I think we call it civility in public life. An awful lot of areas now are starting to talk about abuse and intimidation in politics, and I think in some ways that is more appropriate. As the monitoring officer said, that as presiding member of the Welsh Local Government Association, I'm heavily involved in this agenda. So back at the end of last year, I attended the COSLA conference where I participated in one of the agenda items on this alongside my colleagues from Northern Ireland and England, as well as Scotland. And there was discussion there about the way in which this area is actually becoming more worrying, the personal risk to people. Actually, while I was there, I came off the platform to receive a phone call to say that that social media had targeted a vehicle parked outside my house. They'd said it was mine, but actually I don't have a car. It was my husband. So I actually had to phone my husband and tell him that if he was going out in the car, could he please check it beforehand? Such is the level at the moment. The more recent Wales-wide seminar included, as the monitoring officer said, leaders of local authorities or their representatives across Wales. It also included the Police and Crime Commissioners and also the relevant representative and Assistant Chief Constable in South Wales Police, with a wide-ranging discussion. And I think, again, that the benefit of having a private discussion in what was, to all intents and purposes, a safe space allowed people to speak about the challenges that they find in their local authority. And it was eye-opening that it was above the level I think that most of us thought it was. They discussed the latest survey that has been done across the UK, but we've split off the Welsh data in terms of people's experience of abuse and intimidation and what that actually means, and then talking about next steps and what can be done. The police had talked about focusing on the Senedd for this year, but actually such was the level of the challenge. They are actually talking now about spreading that and also including local government. I think that one thing that came out, I had thought we were a bit of an outlier, but still a bit, but maybe not as much as I thought, in terms of increasingly this abuse is being driven politically. And so there was discussion about how that can be tackled, what needs to happen in terms of addressing behaviours of members, some of the issues of social media, etc., and also discussion of what the Ombudsman's role would be in that. And I think it was actually a very, very wide-ranging, extensive conversation. And I think it might be helpful. I'm quite happy to arrange a separate meeting for the independent members of the committee. If you would find it useful to actually go through some of that information in more depth, I could invite the appropriate officer from the Welsh Local Government Association as well, so that, you know, perhaps it would add some context to the work of the Standards Committee in the Vale. So I'll stop there. Thanks, Chair.
Well, thank you very much for that. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Yes, Councillor Charles.
Thank you, Liz. I welcome this very much. I've recently, because of an inaccurate statement that was made in the press by a political party, and then when I spoke on an agenda item, I felt I was bullied and intimidated due to the inaccurate statement that was put in the press. As you receive yourself the same sort of thing, I had bombardment of emails, which were also trying to intimidate me and abuse me. So I think this is long awaited, and I thank you, Liz, for the work that you're putting into it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Franks.
Thank you. Hello, Liz. What I have said this before, and now you're here, I'll say it again. I do worry, and I'm looking for reassurances. I do worry that the Civility and Public Life programme, in some hands, might be used to damp down robust comment and scrutiny. If you are saying something perhaps passionately and in all sincerity, in some circumstances, that can be said to be in breach of the standards that we all share. So I think there is a line between what we call civility and inappropriateness, but there's also a factor that especially opposition members must be allowed and indeed encouraged to firmly challenge those in authority. Thank you.
Well,
could I come back on that, Chair?
Yeah, well, my comment would be that yes, you can challenge, but it can all be done politely. There's no need for personal attacks. Yes, Councillor Burnett.
Thank you, Chair. I think one of the things that was covered in some of these meetings has been, I've learned some new terminology. We all talk about misinformation, but then it moved to disinformation, which is the deliberate spread of misinformation. Then you have malinformation, and malinformation is very deliberate false information. And I think that I totally agree with Councillor Franks in terms of that we should be able to agree to disagree, but respectfully and with full use of facts. And I think what we are seeing now is, we actually can see it as well, is people speaking, and it's quite evident if you look at, you know, councils across Wales or across the UK have recorded meetings, etc., where statements are made as if they are fact, and they are not. And I think there needs to be some sort of mechanism where people need to be prepared, if they are making such a statement, to present the facts behind that statement. Because in the world of social media, quite often those things change. And what we're seeing at the moment is we're seeing meetings in Senedd meetings being clipped in a way that is completely misleading and misrepresents the actual discussion in that meeting, which then is used to catalyse abuse in the media. So totally agree that we should have robust conversations. But if those robust conversations are based on factually inaccurate statements, then those statements, there needs to be an avenue to challenge those statements and for people to be required to demonstrate the facts behind them.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments? Any other comments? I think you made a good point there, Liz, but when we learn of what the BBC did and deliberately edited reports with regard to President Trump, one wonders where sanity is going to be returned.
We could be a little bastion of it.
Ronnie Alexander.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Burnett. I just wanted to respond to your suggestion of a meeting with independent members and say that from my perspective, I would welcome that if possible. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I think it's very important that you've brought this matter back, and I know you're passionate about it, Councillor Burnett, and I think we ought to be reminded about it all the time. I think we will go on to decide whether we can, if we can take up your kind offer and have a meeting further in this meeting. Are there any other comments or questions before we move on? No. Oh, sorry, Councillor Burnett.
No, I was just going to say thank you very much for your time today, and I shall leave you there and go back next door to my colleagues. Thanks for your time.
Well, thank you for sparing the time to speak to us. Thank you very much. We'll move on to correspondence with the Public Service Ombudsman for Wales, item 10.
Thank you, Chair. This is the standard report that I bring to the committee, and we will move shortly, subject to there being no other agenda items or any other business, into part 2 so that I can provide the update to members of the committee.
Thank you. Any items which the Chair has decided are urgent, we'll deal with that suggestion by Councillor Burnett in part 2, I think, as an urgent matter. But I haven't been referred to anything. There's nothing else. No. All right. Well, this concludes part 1, and we'll move on to part 2.
Thank you, Chair. If you just bear with me momentarily, I'll make sure that the live stream has been paused.